Amen.
Om. Om. This is the meditation hour, or the marinating hour. Everyone have your chemical suits on and your respirators?
If anyone would like to call in for a reading.
Right. For those that don't know, we're messing with you. This is another perspective, because why, Bob?
Why not? Everybody else seems to be crap.
Because it's Monday night. Well, it's Monday night here anyhow.
This is crap. I am channeling Maratapata Bob. We will be doing readings today.
So what number do they call in if they want a reading today?
That would be 702-879-4770. We will be doing readings and tech support for all Dell products. Thank you for calling. My name would be Felix. Okay, they're like putting new gas lines in my house today, and I think we may have a leak. I may be a little lightheaded and have a touch of the vapors.
That's totally fine, because it adds to the realisticness of our show.
What
we
kind
actually
of
have
gas?
three.
Is it nitric oxide that they're plumbing?
Who knows? Seriously, who knows at this point what comes up out of the ground? It seems to be dependent upon what they pump into the ground to get it out.
Oh, man. You ask a flippant question, you get a serious answer. That's sobering.
Seriously, we drill for natural gas and it comes up like radioactive poison gas. So, as a marker to identify who made the leak.
Right.
That's like using a bullet to identify who stabbed you.
Hey, if it works, I mean, it gives somebody a job, right? That's all about jobs, because we live in a consumer-driven society. We got to have jobs.
Okay, so I guess we should probably do some sort of formal introduction. Like, this is another perspective. It's Wolf Spirit Radio. It's listener supported. We're obviously the three of us in weird moods, so if you want to call in, I gave you the number. You can Skype in at wolfspirit.switchboard, the number 1. If you're in a giving mood, call in and give us crap, or find a donate button on wolfspiritradio.com and give there, or subscribe to the archives. This normally would be Dr. Wil Spencer's show, except me and Patrick hijacked it as guests about, 2 years ago?
It's been a couple days, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to make a disclaimer. I'm not in a weird mood. I live in Illinois.
What kind of a mood would that be then if it's not a weird mood because you live in Illinois?
It's a weird state, man. The state of confusion. And you know what? It's home to corn and soybeans, and I want to get both of you on track with what the Marinator had sent us on these little worms that don't seem to be bothered by Bacillus thuringiensis protein toxin that has been genetically hammered into what used to pass as corn plants.
And now we're picking it up in
syringes in the corn?
Bacillus thuringiensis. Is that I say that right, Patrick? Because you're like, you can say that way more eloquent than I can.
I think it's thuringiensis. Call it what you want. Just call it BT. Don't call it late for dinner.
That's right. The BT toxins come from the BT bacteria.
Okay, ho, 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 Green Giant, Bronx Boy here. Somebody want to fill me in non-Latin?
Absolutely. I think we should fill everybody in non-Latin. I got my shovel.
Actually, Latin would work too. It's that classical Catholic upbringing. How about non-scientific Latin? If you want to throw religious Latin in there, have at it.
Go get him, Will.
Patrick? No, Patrick, you come up for air. Come on now. Go ahead.
So, here's the deal. We're gonna this on a twist tour. I'm not going to follow the party line and do the talking points that everybody wants to hear, the talking points that'll probably be on the internet. The reason why Joe Mercola can spend $1.1 million on trying to get things labeled GMO and have it fail, and thank you very much for your donations, you idiots, is because it's at least organic farms and produce and fruit were being sprayed with a bacteria called Bacillus thuringiensis. The Bacillus genus is a particularly nasty spore-forming bacteria that puts out endotoxins, one of them being the BT protein that paralyzes and punches in the guts of caterpillars. So the FDA, USDA approved it for use on, listen to me, on organic fruits and vegetables. And actually back in the day, thinking I was a Rodale clone, I almost said crone, actually sprayed it on some of my fruit trees. And it does make them caterpillars hang upside down and turn into wilty little pieces of ectoplasm, as they would say on Ghostbusters. But I got some overspray, and it's my considered opinion that the damn stuff hurts human beings just as much as it hurts the worms. And after I got that overspray, I promptly threw out the rest of my live culture of Bacillus thuringiensis, BT, that I was using for organic pest control, and never used it again. And I never thought of it again since the 1970s. This is why you can't get anything labeled non-GMO, because they're using it on your organic crops. But what is called the corn rootworm beetle, actually the European corn rootworm beetle, also has another name called the cucumber beetle. It likes to eat just about damn near everything on the planet, and it'll destroy industrial farm crops. And Will loves this. They grow farm crops in thousands of acres and rows after rows after rows, and that's all they grow in the field. Bugs love that. You can get trillions of bugs per acre. How do you control that? Well, they're not going to spray it. Too expensive. So they gene spliced it into, and this is the difference. The only difference between organic crops is they spray it on it, and conventional crops, they genetically engineered the protein, just the protein, the part that paralyzes the gut and punches holes in it. They put it into the plant. Well, our really good friend of this show and our emails sent us an article saying, well, the damn worms found a way, just like in Jurassic Park. They found a way, and now they're completely immune to BT toxin.
Isn't one of those beetles that you speak of, didn't they become immune to the Roundup corn itself too? I remember vaguely some kind of thing where one of the critters they figured out in 7 generations, which for a bug is like 6 minutes, became immune to the Roundup Ready corn.
They became immune to the glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup.
Excuse me, Mr. Wizard.
Oh, and you know, just for clarification, because we do have bronchs, and most people don't know what the hell we're talking about when we're not talking. Glyphosate is one of the main ingredients in Roundup, a weed killer. The stuff that we're talking about, BT, is a bug killer. They're all thrown together under the term pesticide because weeds can be pests and bugs can be pests. But a weed killer and a bug killer are two different things. And so we're talking about two different topics, and isn't it interesting that life actually found a way to defeat two separate horrific toxins that are poisoning and killing people?
That's a very good distinction to make because people get that stuff confused. You have the toxins from the GMO bacteria that's in the plant and in the soil, and then you have the toxins that are sprayed on the plants.
Yeah.
So either way, you have the delight and the privilege of getting toxins.
Yes, but you know what the future is? The robot bees. The robot bees don't get the toxins.
Yes,
So?
but see here's something that I will put out there that I haven't seen anybody talk about. Because bacteria out in the environment has a habit of consuming metals, consuming toxins, and consuming things. I'm waiting for these bugs to come under attack from the bacterias be doing their natural remediation processes, and these synthetic bugs, these little robots, actually get digested by the bacterias out in the environment. That's what I'm waiting to see.
You've been watching reruns of the Andromeda Strain, man.
I'm telling you.
A long time ago, like, way before radio and when I was doing stuff like this, I actually had a, whatever you want to call him, a guide, a guru, whatever. He was just a cool dude that I was friends with who was real into nature and pretty Gnostic. And we were talking one day because the local town was having a hearing about the landfill and the fact that plastic is non-biodegradable. And it was just one of these things. I assumed that he would be there, like, in a tuxedo with lights on it and big placards and signs that this was right up his alley. And he just looked at me. He's like, dude, there ain't a freaking politician in the world that's going to fix that fucking problem. But give it 10 years and nature's going to come up with a bacteria that eats plastic. And when did they discover that? Was it like about 2 years ago now that they found that bacteria in, I believe it was Louisiana, that actually consumes plastic in landfills now?
There's a whole remediation process that I'm aware of from 1970s using microorganisms to break down plastic and other petrochemical components. I usually have that. That's in one of my products, actually, used in that remediation technique to help get the petrochemicals and other plastics out of your body, including cancer cells and any other of these polymers that develop, like polysorbate 60 or polysaturated fats, some of these plastic type compounds like margarine or canola oil that develop in your body. So, yeah, I'm aware of that, and it's been around a long time.
Would that be Archaea?
That is actually, yeah, that's the group of organisms that I am aware of and use.
Well, we can blame it on your friend, the whack job there, for that secret being a secret for so long, Mr. Spies and Assassins Everywhere.
Yeah, well, I'll go a mighty ho here on the whack job, but they're extremely they're called extremites, or what's that word, Patrick, when they say a microorganism lives in extreme environments? They have a special term for that.
Power Rangers, man.
Power Rangers. So these little Power Rangers are kind of like Pac-Men.
Extremophiles.
Extremophiles. Kind of like pedophiles, but
I was going to
much
say, isn't
more-
that a felony in most of the states?
Stop.
only in Patrick's state. Only in
I gotta
Patrick's
think.
state. And what
I
state
can't-
is that?
I can't talk to you about the DRK, as the United Nations may come and arrest me.
Yeah, whatever. Yes, folks, we have some pretty weird friends, and we've come to meet some pretty whacked people in discovering these truths that we talk about here on this show.
When I moved to Texas, the sheriff made me go door to door to all my neighbors with signs and said, "My name is Bob. I'm an extremophile. I live next door to you now."
I think they should turn the gas off. Oh my gosh.
I told him it's a good thing I smoke. I'm going to find out if you fucked up real quick.
So if anybody in Texas hears a bang,
In all
Let me
fairness,
know.
it could be that oil spill off of Galveston. It may not be me. Depends on how big or what color the smoke is.
You know, Bob, I think that you might go up in that flaming ball of light before any of the 11 lighters do.
Hey man, it's all puppy dog farts and liquid propane.
oh, now you're playing Pat's game.
Patrick's the one I got to worry about. It's a good thing he's not visiting, or he'd be naked in the moonlight with his blowtorch burning all my armadillos.
Hunting scorpions.
Is that how they do it in biodynamics?
Yeah, you got to do it naked. Absolutely.
Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting extremophiles.
So if somebody would like to actually direct the conversation, you could call in.
I'm
Or-
directing it, but I got news for you. It's headed down if somebody wants a different direction.
This is the anniversary of the Exxon Valdez, by the way, and I think we're on that bearing.
Well, if that is any indication of anything, how many other oil spills have we heard of in the last couple of weeks? We got one in Ohio, the one down in the Gulf again. There's actually 3 or 4 of them that I heard of recently.
Well, let's tie this together. In the 1970s, this was the foundational patent that established that you can create a novel life form and then claim ownership of it. Some guy with a long East Indian name that I can't remember, wouldn't be able to pronounce, actually developed for a corporation the oil slick eating bacteria. And so here we go, plastics, you got your metals, you got your oils. Creatures eat everything.
That's their job.
And where were you going with your topic, Will? Because sometimes you like a really brilliant point, and then you'll like fade off into like, you know, some kind of tangential orbit, and it's like, man, did he get lost in space again? You're talking about them eating the metals. Were you getting to the point that if they introduce like robot bees, the robot bees will be completely eaten up?
That is kind of my point, because I work in, I've helped quite a few people that have actually had full semiconductor chips radiating radio waves out of their body. So we have this technology in people's bodies now. From you can go to dataasylum.com. This is real. They can actually pick up radio frequencies being given off from different parts of a body. Some people I've even heard of having 7 and 8 different frequencies being transmitted simultaneously from their body. They're very ill. They're electromagnetic sensitive. They're loaded with metals. They're loaded with pathogens. And when they work with us, the stuff goes away.
It
takes a while.
Is this Kurzweil's version of synthesized schizophrenia? Instead of having 10 voices in your head, you have 10 frequencies?
Yes, I believe that's part.
I am an android.
Of the technology. Yep.
I am an android. No, you're not. Yes, I am. Shut up.
So how would you spell that? Synthophrenia.
Synthophrenia.
There you go, Patrick. There's another book for you. Synthophrenia: How Kurzweil Rewrote the DSM. Have you noticed how good I am with the titles, but everything that happens between the table of contents and the appendix I usually bail on?
That's what I'm here.
That.
I get the seed ideas. I'll flesh them out.
You gotta have a think tank, and it starts with the think tank. So this is like the think tank for the book titles here. Just keep shelling the titles out.
Just like a Hollywood movie, if you got a good hook, what does the content matter?
Just make sure it's a GMO seed idea, or nobody's going to buy it in today's market.
Well, it can't be natural. You gotta have. What's that, Patrick?
Is that the new rating system? Rated GMO. Like PG-13.
We should have an R in there just so have somebody have, some people have the reference point. They should have a GMO R or GMO G or something. You got to, so they have a reference. If you just put rated GMO, it's like, what?
So go ahead. You're talking about Hollywood, Will.
Oh, I wasn't talking about Hollywood. No, I was talking about this stuff. I'll refer back to the metallic polymer man-made bees or insects. We call them little miniature drones. And people's bodies. So it would not surprise me that when these industrially educated fools release their stuff into the environment, just like the BT toxins and the Roundup, that they're not seeing that they're forcing nature to be smarter, because nature is smarter, and it will always overcome the crap that's infused into nature synthetically. Then nature, in its infinite wisdom, has the ability then to overcome and adapt, like the little corn borer worm caterpillar has overcome and adapted to the BT toxins to now thrive in the corn and in the face of all the chemicals. That's how smart nature is. I personally think that they're forcing nature to mutate by introducing this crap into it strategically to create these mutated insects, mutated bacterias, and so forth, in hopes of mutating the human race even further in this direction that they want it to go. Because there's a lot of information coming out lately, excuse me, that for me anyhow, I see it as information. A lot of other people see it as science fiction. Patrick, you're that's what I love about you, is there's no line between science fiction and reality much anymore. In the creation of this transhumanistic chess game that they're trying to create the bipeds to be basically just industrial machines like the Matrix, to feed the system.
Dude.
Yeah, dude, man. Yeah, go ahead, dude man.
Science fiction. Okay, the head of R&D for Google used to be the head of DARPA. She has a tattoo of a printed circuit board on the inside of her forearm, and every morning she takes a capsule that's an organic battery and lights this thing up. Okay, cool. It doesn't get any more real than that. And this thing was FDA approved before she went public with it.
That's what I'm talking about. Cyborg.
Science fiction to me is The Sound of Music or Oklahoma. Rodgers and Hammerstein is science fiction.
The reality of it is, though, that this technology is in people's bodies. And the reality of it is, when you have these metals and these other transistors, these components of computers that have auto-replicated, I forget the wording, where they have put themselves together inside the human body, or they've been injected or surgically put into the human body, however they end up in the human body, they don't stay there. This is why they have to have full control of the whole environment to make sure this technology does not go away. Otherwise, nature, in its wisdom, will decontaminate it out of the body, just like it will decontaminate it out of the soil or the water or the environment.
Well, one of the more dangerous, how shall we say, theories, because I do not have any proof of this, but what you're talking about are self-assembling and self-replicating nanomachines.
Molecular machines, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One of the more disturbing things that I've heard in the alternative scientific community is that they're using synthetic DNA to give them their assembly programs, and that those DNA that the critter's own DNA can be specifically altered by your DNA or by external electromagnetic frequencies. So they literally are instead of putting a micro machine in your body, they're putting a bunch of Legos in your body and giving it instructions to assemble itself into the Storm the Castle Lego kit, or the Fly into Outer Space Lego kit, or the Let's Eat Holes in Your Brain Lego kit.
They don't even have to send the information for it to happen. All they have to do is get the bacteria, virus, or fungi in the body, and then they are the ones that actually do the little work. They're like the little worker bees, the little guys inside that do the building. I'm seeing this a lot in the scans, because we're seeing Bacillus thuringiensis, or however you say that, the BT bacteria, the GMO, is showing up in people's bodies like you wouldn't believe. I'm seeing an increase in rabies. I'm seeing an increase in HIV, AIDS, measles, mumps, and a lot. I mean, the list goes on. I'm talking about over 200 different variations of the grip virus alone. And yet you haven't heard of grip for 30, 40 years. These are the worker bees.
I've heard of it never. What's grip?
Oh, the old timers used to talk about having the grip. It's like the flu symptoms nowadays.
It
it's
was
not that thing that
described to
makes
me
you go
this
blind.
way. There were three major internal dysfunctions: the grips, the gripes, and the groans. So the grip is where it feels like somebody's grabbing you from the inside and just squeezing your intestines. The gripes is where you have a lot of gas, and the groans is self-explanatory.
What about the gout? That's the one that I heard of as a kid. The rich man's disease.
Oh, right, where your joints swell up, flare up, and you can't move. Yeah, that's another one that would fit into that realm.
We were told as kids it was from eating too well.
Eating too much grain, nuts, or seeds, too much carbohydrates. The uric acid, because you're mixing the carbohydrate with an animal product, the American diet, meat and potatoes, actually then builds up a uric acid. It causes the system to not be able to handle uric acid buildup, and it settles in your joints. So yeah, it is a wealthy man if you want to look at it that way. Well, it used to be considered that. Not nowadays, because we got cheap food. We got Walmart.
So, pretty much, people might need like a Paxil, or maybe even just a little tink on the head with a hammer to put them out of their ulcer states when they listen to us. But all this stuff, to me, gives hope for the future, that no matter what these animals try to do to pervert nature, nature will put its hand higher on the bat and either destroy or complicate their processes, always needing to make changes. And that's what Bob was saying about doing an upgrade by radio frequency. They either have to make changes or they will fail.
Well, I look at it, if you want to, from the simplest perspective, just think of it as a war of attrition. And what you just said, energy and frequency. They, whoever you want to call them, they can artificially do whatever they want on as wide a scale as they want in their little digital HAL, and they can wreak all this harm. But nature is really the infinite spectrum of frequency. Nature's not digital. So no matter what, she's always got the upper hand, and she's always going to have bandwidth that these little freakazoids don't have, and it's just naturally going to be used to that advantage. So they can go tweak the frequency of reality all they want. She's her bat's an infinite length, man, and when she starts swinging it, it's a beautiful thing.
That's what I love
that.
about working with nature. That's what I love about working with nature, is just that. This is what the industrial educated people just don't get. I don't think they can get it.
The reason I keep bringing up these topics is I hear a lot from people that they get depressed, that there are just too many problems coming too fast. But this is all about artificial energy input. And if we just postulate that an EMP could take out their ability to perform the perversions that they're doing, and that EMP could be something like an exploding boloid. We're way past due for a cometary shower, man. They promised it to me. This is 2014. It's supposed to be the end of the Mayan holiday. So something natural could occur to knock out their technology, and they're back to zero, man.
Well, my contention was this, and it kind of got solidified when Diesel Napolitano retired from the head of the Department of Human Sacrifice, and everybody shone the spotlight on her statement that it's not a question of if the grid goes down, it's a question of when the grid goes down type of situation. So my contention was always this. If they do collapse the archaic machine that we call our energy distribution system in this country, they're going to let the chaos ensue for as long as it serves their benefit. And we all know they already have the alternate technology out there. I mean, Tesla had it and it was known before Tesla in other circles, the wireless, transmission and reception of energy. It's no secret. Just like how there are quote-unquote third world countries out there that have never had a copper telecommunications infrastructure, and their cell phone networks are 4 times, 3 times more advanced than our cell phone networks here, because that was the only infrastructure that was ever put in. So it's the same concept. It's just a matter of making it cost effective to trash the copper wires and replace it with, a wireless distribution system. And I kind of look at the whole rest of of nature or the planet, whatever you want to call her, Sophia. I kind of look at it at the same way. When she's got an alternative system ready to go. Okay, yeah, like George Carlin said, she's going to shake us off like a bad case of fleas.
Or a corn borer.
Oh.
That would be shaking us off like Patrick with his blowtorch.
Well, whatever works.
And then the other thing too, Patrick said the M word, mutation. At least I think he did, or maybe one of the voices in my head did. I'm not quite exactly sure. But we haven't always looked like this. We haven't always been, what we'll call hominoid, humanoid, whatever. I mean, we've evolved naturally, even if you want to say before all this artificial mutation and all this crap we've been subject to environmentally. So we've evolved. I'll use the word changed instead of evolved. I'm really not comfortable saying we evolved, but I mean, we've changed through the years. So, who's really to say what future we're headed in? But, I just think of the crap that as a species we've survived naturally, let alone the crap, that we've survived artificially. I mean, the above ground nuclear testing in the 40s and the 50s was like some absurd orders of magnitude of, the most toxic kinds of radiation released into our atmosphere and that circulated around the planet, like orders of magnitude on the scale of Fukushima. We know there's bacteria that actually consumes radioactive particles for food. Lord only knows what other, stuff that they have that they keep secret that probably neutralizes radiation to some extent whatsoever. I mean, because we don't know if Fukushima is worse than it is or better than it is. All we know about Fukushima is they're lying. That's it. That's all we know. There is not a single reliable source of information to go either way on that topic.
Bob, every time you talk, I can't help but have visual images. And the one that came to mind was one of my favorite documentaries of all time called Mars Attacks, where they sent out that little thing to get the nuclear warhead being shot at the mothership, and it blew up like a little balloon and converted it into helium, and they breathed it in, and they were using it to make funny voices.
We come in peace. We come in peace. We come in peace.
Peace for what?
Not for nothing, but tell me we wouldn't be better off if Jack Nicholson wasn't the president.
With or without the flag sticking out of his back.
And George Carlin should have been the vice president.
He probably still can with cloning technology.
Oh, good point.
Mars Attacks to me was like Dr. Strangelove meets Warner Brothers.
Oh, man. I gotta write that down.
Okay, so where else can we take this conversation? Because as a captain of the Concord, I have pitched her nose down and have the throttles pinned to the firewalls.
Oh, let's go look for that airplane then that got lost. They say that landed in the Indian Ocean now.
Oh, now it landed in the Indian Ocean?
Yeah, first it was on the moon. Then now it's in the Indian Ocean, I heard.
Oh, I didn't hear it was on the moon. I missed that one.
Well, that was a National Enquirer. They had a photo of it and everything.
I heard it was at Diego Garcia, which I'm pretty certain it probably stopped that before they lawn darted it wherever they lawn darted it.
So can we just cut through the bullshit and get straight to the point here that they have remote sensing satellites that in the 1970s could read the entire lithosphere to several miles deep. They knew where every freaking resource was in the 70s. NASA has full spectrum capability to the point where they can tell where ancient, hidden, covered by forest, grown over by forest, where hidden Maya cities are. And you're going to tell me that, oh, we tasked the satellites, but we couldn't find anything. My ass.
Yeah. They can tell you where every ounce of gold is, like within, 8 miles of the surface of the crust. May actually even be deeper than that now. They can identify minerals from those satellites. Not to mention the fact, let me toss into this, the Pacific Ocean, the reason why Concord, it's funny that I was doing the Concord analogy, the reason why Concord was never allowed to fly over the Pacific Ocean is because no commercial supersonic flight is allowed over the Pacific Ocean, because no matter what you believe about conspiracy theories, it is the densest military packed zone of operations on the planet for the United States. So whatever coverage there is on the rest of the planet, there's like 4 times more coverage for the Pacific. If you have a good fart, okay, there's a satellite that will pick up the methane, okay? You cannot lose a plane there, not an entire jumbo jet.
And on top of that, I was told by my ex-brother-in-law, thankfully he likes alcohol and he likes to talk a lot when he drinks and be saying things that he probably shouldn't have. But he's retired Air Force, works for, I think it's Southwest or something, or Northwest or one of these other companies up in Minneapolis, St. Paul Airport. This was right after 9/11, a couple months after. He was telling us about how, since the 80s, that all commercial airlines could be remote controlled from the ground. All I got to do is flip a switch, the pilots in the cockpit lose all control of the plane, and the ground control can then remote control that plane 100%, and the pilots have no interference at all involved. So what happened? You know what I mean? So you have this technology that's like 30 years old, that's been in place for over 30 years, and then somebody hijacks an airplane with a box cutter or whatever, and a plane disappears. I mean, really?
I believe Boeing went public, because Boeing's the one that did the technology. I believe they went public with that in 2004 or 2008, much to the ire of the pilots union, because the pilots themselves did not know. But yes, the Boeing, it's got a name for what the autopilot is, but they can completely and totally, from certain ground-based stations, or more importantly from an airborne advanced surveillance package like a AWACS, they can completely and totally take control of every single facet of the airplane.
Okay, so here's a question in the chat room. Would you agree that NSA has audio-visual spy satellites and know where the plane is all the time? Well, I can't verify that because I never saw a satellite. But I can tell you from those that I know that come from those departments, they have told me that. My neighbor, when growing up on the farm, had a brother that worked for Jet Propulsion Laboratories that shared all kinds of stuff like this. I lived 14 miles from the very first laser in New Mexico. That White Sands Missile Range was accurate, could shoot the middle of a dime, can melt the dime at 50 miles on a cloudy day. That's how accurate this laser is. And I was told, and this is what they told, this was from White Sands Missile Range, there's 14 of these satellites, or 14 of these lasers on satellites, and this is back in 2003. There was 14 of these lasers on their individual satellites up in space at around 14 miles high. Okay, so what does that tell you? It has a 50-mile accuracy to a dime. It is what was used to shoot down or loosen the tiles on the underside of the returning. I can't even think what the heck that they went up to space.
Fort Pinto.
No, a little bigger. What do they use?
Shuttle.
The shuttle. Okay, the space shuttle that blew up or whatever. Remember that? Well, that space shuttle went directly over that laser in New Mexico. Was basically used that laser to loosen up the tiles, and so it exploded on contact or whatever. You know what I mean? It destroyed that space shuttle. They had 14 of those in 2003 up in space looking down. It was part of Reagan's, what was after the Cold War, the space program thingy.
Star Wars, man.
The Star Wars, there you go.
Strategic Defense Initiative.
Thank you there, Bob. How many more they got up there now?
Well, who's that kid in England that they wouldn't extradite? Who hacked into the ONI and got the complete rundown of the space fleet?
I don't know the name, but I remember hearing that.
Yeah. It was actually pretty funny because it was like the same space fleet as Star Trek, which was like the same as the naval fleet and whatever. They just like reused the names, you know, the Exeter, the Enterprise, all that stuff. But yeah, you know, for anybody that's interested, you can go on YouTube and look at videos. There's one guy in particular that's spent a lot of his free time coming up with different camera mounts and interfaces and things like this. But if you do specifically, there's 4 generations of night vision goggles. You need specifically Generation 3, and Generation 3P would be the best. If you get a Generation 3 set of night vision goggles and you stare at the sky at night long enough, you can actually see things flying around out there that you cannot see with the naked eye.
I heard tell that, you know.
Oh, I've seen it. It's kind of weird too, because if you're into aviation at all, you can kind of get a feeling for what is a man-made aircraft and what is like some completely foreign thing, and it's really just like being observant of physics and kind of being aware of, as human beings, how we transport ourselves. You can actually like see the fact that we have prejudices in flight, even in space, whereas a culture that was used to moving freely without gravity in 3 dimensions wouldn't have those same prejudices. So you kind of get a feeling of what constitutes a human intelligence flying a craft versus wow, that's definitely not of this Earth type of movement.
You're talking about looking through that lens or that camera or that filter. You can tell the difference.
Yeah, when you see something move. In fact, it was even referenced in Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. They end up defeating Khan because Mr. Spock notices that Khan's weakness is that he moves in 2 of the 3 dimensions and doesn't exploit the 3rd dimension efficiently, and so that's how they end up targeting him when they're targeting computers fail. You know, the Gene Roddenberry version of shooting from the hip with Kentucky windage. Well, it's the same thing. I mean, we've evolved in manned flight, and we've evolved in all of our natural transportation systems. And if you learn how to fly, or if you learn how to ride a motorcycle or anything like that, and you actually study transportation, you get a feeling for the fact that we as human beings have prejudices in our motions based on how our methods of transportation have evolved. So when you see something move in an extremely bizarre fashion, you tend to get a gut feeling of the fact that there is probably not a human evolved intelligence controlling that craft.
Yeah, I got that.
And it appears we have a caller from area 917. I am acknowledging them, Dave.
That would be
Caller
I.
917, you are acknowledged.
Me. It is I, the great Burger here. Well, I'm enjoying this, and you guys are really moving fast. So it's hard to sort of jump in at any one point and sort of try to pull it all together or something. I mean, it's my inclination to want to do that, but this is not the place I realize. I did appreciate Will's anecdote about his brother-in-law, though, and his comments about how planes could be remote controlled, and that was, I had figured that might be true, since it is well known that cars can be remote controlled, no problem, and has been sort of in our face with the Michael Hastings incident, if you remember that. Yeah, so why not planes? Of course, no biggie there. Other than that, I don't know anything else about the plane. I'm inclined not to really care a lot, but I do have a specific question about, it's a big subject changer, but I hope you can just dispatch it with, a simple smear or something. And that's about therapeutic magnets. Now, I have magnetic insoles, of course, negative side toward the body. And I also have a pad that I've been considering dusting off and using as a yoga mat. But, the way we'll pitch things and the way things actually turn out are generally very different. So I was wondering if Will or Patrick or Bob have a comment about that, and, maybe if one should just sort of stay away from them or throw them away or whatever.
I got an opinion. There's, how can I say? Have to formulate a thought here, so just excuse me just a minute. The body operates on specific frequency bands. When you're not healthy, it operates on other frequency bands. Some people have had benefits from using household magnets, like on your refrigerator type magnets, and some people actually that I know have been harmed by using those type of magnets. There's a company called Nacan, years past, that used to make really good quality magnets that actually benefited the body. most of that is gone because making quality magnets takes a lot of money. And the can
I've
is
had
one.
my mat. Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to say that I've had my mat for probably 15 years, easy, and it came from Mid-American Marketing, which was quite reputable.
Well, see, here's the problem though, because there's such a variation of frequencies that people operate on, and what it's just like it's a homeostasis thing. What's going to benefit me may not benefit somebody else.
Yeah, of
you
course.
see?
Yeah, it's like doing sound therapy with just, G sharp for everybody. Sing a G sharp and it'll be fine. Maybe a lot of G sharps, up and down the octave. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, so, and there again, now we live in the day where we have these wonderful modified pathogens and parasites, especially like the Lyme bacteria, and they, meaning the pathogens, live and benefit in what used to be considered a good thing. For instance, there's a whole group of bacteria that really flourish in a high alkaline environment in the body. So trying to alkalize the body feeds them. We have the same thing going on in that EMF, in the electrical magnetic ranges. So it's all about balance, you see. You're ill,
well, hopefully,
so you're basically trying to use a bandage therapy or a symptom relief thinking to try to bring back balance, and it doesn't work that way. Balance has to come from within, in my opinion, not from without.
Right. Well, basically, I just wanted to use it as a yoga mat, but was a little afraid of, screwing up my frequencies, if you will. And thanks for the constant commentary about, well, not constant, but repeated, about the alkaline acidic issue, which we're encouraged to be alkaline. I think probably most of your people really understand now why that's a canard, if you will. That's the right word. A fallacy, and the subtleties of the matter that preclude a one-stop shopping solution for everybody. So on that note, I'm going to hang up because I have this ear cancer machine plastered to my ear. I just want to make one suggestion, though, make one recommendation. I watched this great video, this great YouTube today with Freeman Fly in it, and maybe you know who he is. And there is this conference called Free Your Mind Conference, which I just found out was already last year. Free Your Mind 2 Conference. Go watch, if you have the time, Freeman's presentation, because it's pretty rabbit-holey. And earlier you were talking about, occulted stuff, and I forget specifically what, but whatever it was, he covers it. Maybe you were talking about the church, I don't remember. But it's just wonderful, and, especially if you're sort of addicted to the crepes, like some of us. Anyway, I thought I'd throw that out, and then say sayonara for now, and thanks, you guys. I'm always listening.
Well, thanks for calling in.
Okay, talk to you. Bye-bye. Bye, guys.
All right, bye-bye.
Will, I'm still catching up with notes. Was the name McCann's that you were talking about?
No, the caller was talking about that.
No, you'd mentioned a manufacturer. I thought you called them McCann.
It was a Nikan or Necken. There's a multi-level company that was selling magnets back in the 80s, 90s. Nikkin or Ian or something. And I'm kind of a phonetic kind of guy, so my pronunciations usually are really not aligned with everyone else. So
I thought it was Irish.
Oh.
I wrote down McCann's.
Oh. No, it's actually, I think, Oriental.
Okay.
Just the other side of the globe. So you're just in opposite days.
The other kilt wearers.
Yeah. Yeah, the Oriental plaid.
Stop it, man.
No, see, when you have a high metal count in your body, different magnet frequencies can cause different things to happen. When you have different semiconductor chip type components, magnets can actually be extremely detrimental and painful. But at the same time, back, it was in the 80s, I think it was, Beckman or something like that, they were actually helping salamanders and frogs regrow their body parts by using magnetism. But see, back then, they weren't taking into consideration what we got now. They didn't know about what we got now, evidently, because now we have all these metals, we have all these genetically modified and mutated organisms, we have EMF pollution going on, so there's some. That's why I don't really do magnet things very well. I don't encourage people to do it because there's too many variables. I'll promise you, you don't have the money it takes to buy the right magnets unless you are pretty much getting, living on that six-figure or higher income and don't have money problems, because buying good magnets are not cheap. That's my experience. Just because Baba John, next door neighbor, is getting benefits by strapping his refrigerator magnets to his body doesn't mean you're going to.
So what do you call a good magnet?
Expensive, rare. I don't think like that because it's all bandage and symptom thinking. It's what my partner Delanne calls pharmaceutical thinking. I have a pain, so I'm going to try to get rid of the pain. Instead of looking at what is my body trying to tell me by having this pain? What is really behind the pain? You see, what's wrong with magnets is the thinking of their use. They don't do anything for the actual cause of the pain. They can get rid of the pain, but why is the pain there? That's the line of thinking where I come from. Because pain is like a fire alarm in your house. It's there. The fire alarm is there. And it's virtually useless until it goes off to alert you that you have a fire and you need to do something right now. Pain is like that. Pain is an alarm telling you that there's a problem. And the location of the pain, the kind of pain, can tell a lot if you know what you're looking for and what the pain is trying to tell you. Does that make any sense? I mean, it makes sense to me. But then I'm kind of weird, so. All right. Dave says we're alive, so hip hip hooray! Made it through another break. So anyhow, this is the second half of Another Perspective here on wolfspiritradio.com. Woof woof. This is a listener-sponsored network. So Dave was telling me he's really short of toilet paper, so if you have any dinar, please send them to Pahrump so Dave doesn't have to go out and buy toilet paper, please.
Should they wait until it revalues first?
It doesn't matter because it's not going to ever revalue, so just send it to Dave. He'll thank you.
Yet another myth.
And it keeps my hands clean.
Oh, there you go.
So it's not dirty money?
Not if you send it to Dave's. He'll launder it for you. And in exchange, you will get shows like this at your fingertips, in your ears, to help you through your day-to-day life and to wonder why you've never, ever listened to us before. You should have. We've got months and months and months of these shows in the archives. I mean, we've been doing this a while. It's like we're almost like, family here or something. Well, maybe I wouldn't go that far, but, we're friendly.
Well,
sometimes.
Bob has alluded on air to having, in quotes, family connections.
Well, I have too. I was over to my cousin's yesterday, going over the family tree again, because I really wanted to get clear this connection with George Washington, and actually he had some other information that he got to share, because he's retired Secret Service, as well as a subcontractor. He worked did security work for the FBI and NSA and some of these other wonderful alphabet soup guys. That was his job, and he got to share some stuff. So it's amazing when you just start digging in your family tree, like I just last couple of years, because I never really had a connection to the family. That the connection, the world is not that big of a place. And just because family members are family members doesn't mean that we're all aligned. Because I'll promise you, I'm not aligned with what's going on in this country on a governmental scale.
So you claim.
There's no claim in here. That's fact. Anybody who knows me personally, I'm not real happy with the way stuff is going on here.
I don't know, somebody with your pedigree, Washington, Spencer, I mean, which ties you to Bush, which ties you to Aleister Crowley. At best you can tie me to Tony Soprano, because The Sopranos was like the autobiography of my family. But
isn't that a piano manufacturer? Soprano, didn't they make pianos?
I don't know.
No, that's soprano saxophone, maybe.
No,
I know we used piano wire.
They made a lot of widows.
I have friends in eastern Pennsylvania that did a lot of concrete work in New York City. And boy, do they tell stories. There's a lot of people that accidentally just fell in when they were building these bridge embankments and when they were building these foundations and stuff. These guys just jumped right in that concrete and got buried. Can you believe that?
You want to know what another place was? And this is a show your age statement. Rechroming places that used to rechrome bumpers when the bumper of a car actually was built like the side of a skyscraper, and you didn't replace a bumper. You could straighten it with a hammer like you could straighten any other metal, and then you would have them re-chromed. And they had these giant, it's a multi-stage process, and they had these giant pits, usually in the floor, because these things are real heavy. If you think of the old school bumpers and grills and how big they were. And a lot of people just kind of, would be going on that, the insurance company does not allow you on the free tour of the rechroming facility tour. And, they just get a little too close to the edge.
You mean the acid pits?
Yep.
I come from the farm, and there's a lot of these weird-looking, human almost-looking bones in the back behind the pig barn too. So that stuff is real.
Yeah, but then you got to go through the trouble of pulling the teeth if you're going to use the pigs.
Why?
Identification through dental records. Pigs don't digest them.
Huh.
Didn't they teach you that part on the farm?
No, because all the bones where I live they go to the rendering plant over by Browerville, and they got ground up and made into bone meal that you got on your plants.
We should be so lucky that it just ended up on our plants. It probably ended up in our bologna.
Nah, this was before those days. So we want to talk about anything else this half of the show?
I was going to say, is there anything that we needed to conclude from the first half of the show?
To answer a question in the chat room, Another Perspective started in 2012, April 23rd.
Didn't I do some shows on your network before that, though, Dave?
Yeah, as a guest, yes.
Yeah.
But that's the first show we did on Another Perspective.
So we're going on 2 years here on your network, Dave.
2 years, the 23rd of next month.
Oh, we need an anniversary party now.
Well, for those of you that don't understand the evolution of broadcasting and hosts on Wolf Spirit Radio, I'll give you the synopsis. What happens is you go on somebody's show as a guest, and if you're kind of good as a guest, that host will ask you to come back like as a guest the second time. And then one day you'll get a call from Dave, and he'll start talking to you on the phone. And then when your conversation is done, Dave will say, well, that was good. I recorded the whole thing, and we broadcasted it live, and you have a new show, and it starts on this week, 8 o'clock on Thursday nights. And then the process repeats itself, which is why Patrick and I are probably the longest-running guests on Will's show in the history of the FCC.
Well, I like the conversation style of, listening to things, which is very rare. You usually only get just commentary. And it's just so real, and it's relaxed, and there's a lot of information in a conversation that people just miss. So that's why I like this. This is like unique, and it's informative. And I'm really glad Dave didn't pull that stunt with me. Thank you, Dave.
I thought about it, though.
I bet you did. I'm glad you didn't, though.
So am I. And if anybody in the Pahrump area wants a hand scan, you can call me at 775-537-6317, and I can arrange it for you.
How about Las Vegas? You going to go down there? Or will they come up to your... Well,
they got to come to my house.
Oh, okay.
Because I run the radio station, too.
Do you think you could set up an office over there at the ranch? You can kill two birds with one stone. You might get a little bit more business that way.
I'd have to have someone do it because I can't afford to be away from the station.
Huh. We'll have to explore that possibility, won't we?
Yes, we will. Maybe we can get Trim Jar to do it.
Oh. Well, you'll have to ask him.
He put in a chat room, now I know why I do not Skype Dave.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Trem was on my show one time when he was working the board, and he was a great guest, co-host, whatever.
Cool.
Since we sort of are fishing around a topic here, and since Cheech and Chong, you two, have made me reread The Biology of Aggression, can I throw a Biology of Aggression topic out there?
Sure. Someday we're going to get back to that, too, by the way. I found my book the other day in this move. It got kind of misplaced, so go ahead.
Well, one of the references made in the beginning of the book, the entire concept of something which I think ties into what we're saying. There's kind of a whistleblower. One of the authors, for those people that don't know, The Biology of Aggression is a compendium of scientific papers put together by NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, back in 84, I think. 81? Okay.
81, 82, yeah.
Yeah, and there's this dude called J.R. Durant who put a paper in there, and he's kind of like the whistleblower of the group. And he specifically writes that at a conference which has been sponsored by one of the world's mightiest military and political alliances, it would be perverse to ignore the fact that our subject is intimately related to a whole range of sensitive moral, social, and political issues. He left out economic, shockingly, which I don't understand. But the point that he's raising is this, and this is kind of the relevant part of it to the show, is their concern. The name of the book is The Biology of Aggression. And by 1981, we had already been studying the psychology and the sociology of aggression very heavily. If you look at from the beginning of the eugenicists, I mean, based on Darwin's, plagiarization of selective breeding, et cetera, eugenicism was actually invented by Darwin's cousin. But the resurgence it started in the, as far as the book is concerned, it started in like the late 50s into the 60s, was on top of things like the Tavistock Institute and the John Burke societies and things like this that studied psychology of aggression, is they actually turned this into the biology of aggression, which is the chemical analysis and the chemical alterations of us as a species to, shall we say, enhance the fact that we are basically non-aggressive, or we are aggressive under a very narrow set of circumstances. So since we're talking about evolution and artificial evolution and things like that, does anybody want to bounce around on the stuff that they're doing to us, in case anybody really hasn't noticed that them that aren't couch taters are a little wound up pretty freaking tight and tense lately?
No. They're not wound up. That's just a natural outcome of eating that high carbohydrate diet.
Who are you saying are wound up?
Basically speaking, what I'm noticing is the apathetic are rapidly approaching comatosic, and anybody that's not is either literally a frazzled, neurotic mess or constantly pissed off.
Okay.
So we have the biology of aggression working in real time in front of our eyes, and that's just what it is. I mean, it's like right here in our face.
Well, it is what it is from the background that Bob has given us over the past 2 years on the nature of the controllers. And I really like that word, because Archon can translate into something like controller or governor. And to govern is to steer governmente, to steer the mind. The mind control parameters have only two choices. It's a binary computer-driven system. So either you're completely shut off or you're in a state of rage. And, I'm just going by what you said, Bob. I mean, that's what we're looking at. I can see it. people are either completely just jellyfish lumps floundering on the beach, or they're like getting ready, big one's coming, getting ready.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just noticing it in it. It's funny because sometimes it's hard to get an objective perspective. I've had a lot of stuff going on the last couple of weeks. Actually, I missed like both of my shows. Just a disproportionate amount of interaction with different people in general, and absolutely have paid little to no attention to anything in the world of alternative media or woo or anything like that. And, you know, after a few days of that, you start to look at people objectively, and I'm basically noticing just that, you know, particular thing. It's just, you know, everybody is dealing with everything in like some complete state of dejected apathy, or some frazzled state of being constantly pissed off and angry. And the other thing that I noticed, which actually I probably should have referenced since we're talking about biology here, is I noticed that basically the pissed off people are the ones that tend to be living off of fast food at this point. You know, I haven't taken a look lately, but I'm going to assume that McDonald's profits are probably not suffering at this point, because it just seems to me that more and more people have less and less time and are more on the run, and are really basically, I've noticed it even in the membership in my farm co-op that I belong to. A lot of people are bailing on it. I mean, people are just abandoning things, it seems, left and right, and you know, in a lot of facets of life. And it's just like, you know, we appear to be and I hate to say it because I don't want to sound like everybody else, but we appear to be approaching some sort of apex of something where it just feels like something's got to snap and give, and everybody's got to take a deep in breath again.
Maybe they're waiting for the same little rocks to come and bounce off the earth like Patrick.
Or the Galactic Federation of Light, or the revaluing of dinar, or Karen Hudis's The Hidden Gold in Hawaii and the Philippines, or the Trust of Saint Germain, or Maitreya, or Jesus Christ, or Beetlejuice. You know, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man makes a return.
He has. It's called Goodyear Tire.
Plasmic gun.
You know, it's going to be a sad movie without Egon, but I mean, you know, it's still valid. Don't cross the streams, man. It would not be good.
I say the old, these games, these ploys to keep everybody lazy and waiting is actually working really nice.
So let's take a look at it. You know, we the first hour, for anybody that has like the intestinal fortitude or just the complete committable insanity to listen to this stuff, we've gone from talking about the literal reality of changing the human structure. I'm not just talking the genome, the entire human structure, into a cyborg, a programmable transformer unit that is the equivalent of the Matrix. You know, that's an overused idiom. But then, you know, Bob just made a laundry list of all these, you know, future things to come, and that's always it. People are waiting for the future to happen. And there is a tagline on Rev Radio that fear is in the future.
Oh, don't get me started on the whole Gnostic rant of hurry up and freaking wait. The patriarchal external savior myth. Whether it be New Age, Old Age, Ancient Age, that's what they want you to do. They want you to do nothing. They don't want you to be self-empowered. They want you to sit and freaking wait. And while you're waiting, twist yourself up into some kind of knot. Okay? Whether it's a neurotic knot of anger and disdain and hopelessness, or it's a bright and shiny knot of beaming LED lights that you sit and but just sit and freaking wait, man. Don't do anything. Just wait. Have happy.
Now, I'm going to do some Bobisms here because, we've been doing this stuff for 2 years. I take notes, and I got this thing, it's a curse called memory. You were talking about the alliteration of words, even if they're spelled different, even if by convention they have different meanings. The alliteration, the actual vocalization is the same. K-N-O-T is the same thing as N-O-T. I think that's pretty profound.
Oh, absolutely. Not. That whole, the Phoenicians, why is it called phonics? The root of the word phonics, as like Will said earlier about his pronunciation, because he's hooked on pahonics.
Yeah, thanks. But well noted.
But the whole root of that is because in the Phoenician era, we, according to the books that you're not supposed to read, we spoke a common language. If we remember the biblical interpretation, when I say biblical, I mean the dumbass King James version, the biblical interpretation of the Tower of Babel and our punishment for constructing it was that we were each required to speak in different tongues and thus could no longer communicate. And we were speaking earlier about the copper-based communication systems or the cell phone-based communication systems. These are basically HALs, which is the Gnostic word for simulations, digital simulations. These are tricks to replace what was our natural capability to begin with as a human species. We could communicate electromagnetically between each other without having to hold a brain tumor causing thing, as Sin said when she called in, up to our ear. We could do it naturally. But the power to do that got usurped from us, and then it was replaced by a magic trick and a sleight of hand and a little machine that we become enslaved to called a smartphone that can track our every location. You can't find a freaking 777, but you can lawn dart me with a freaking Maverick missile or a Predator drone if I'm holding my cell phone.
Hear, hear.
This is why I take encouragement now. Because I'm surrounded by people that look around and they're overwhelmed by the multitude of assaults and the rapidity of the assaults. And when you talk, Bob, I mean, the situation is just so absurd. It's like it's got to collapse under its own weight because it's just plain too stupid.
A 12-year-old kid with a Samsung Galaxy and Google Maps can find your microchipped lost dog. And
but they can't find an airplane.
Yeah, in the most densely militarized, classified airspace on the planet, you can't find a big chunk of aluminum.
When they can find metric tons of aluminum 8 feet down in the ground in its raw ore form. I mean, really. That's the insanity that they, meaning the head archons, or those that are polluted with archons, want us to believe. Well, want the masses to believe, because I don't believe it. I don't fall for it.
No, see, and here's the thing. I don't fault them. And Patrick's right. We're not supposed to use the A word, because to use the A word, it's like Beetlejuice. It's to invoke them, and it's to empower them, because it does mean ruler. So what do you call them, Patrick? Damps?
Demented alien mind parasites.
Yes, so we'll call them damps. I like that one.
Damps.
I don't fault the damps, because the damps are doing what comes naturally to them being damp. Okay? What I fault is us. I fault everyone who actually cannot see the freaking flaming contradictions that come out of their mouth all day long. My cell phone is spying on me. My cell phone is spying on me. Yeah, but an alien had to eat a 777 in order to make it vanish. It couldn't possibly have been your government. Oh, it's on the moon. I didn't hear that one. I heard that the big cigar-shaped UFO sucked into 777 and brought it, and I'm not kidding, brought it to Pakistan, where it is now with Osama bin Laden, who apparently has more lives than a cat.
You can't pay for this kind of therapy, man.
Maybe he is a cat. In one of his comeback lives, he maybe is a cat, and he did summons the cigar to eat the plane.
You guys are gone so Hitchhiker, Guide to the Galaxy. I can't stand it, man.
Okay,
so I'm working on a new acronym.
Which is?
and I don't know how to pronounce this yet. HAIC. Head Archon in charge.
That would be hike.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Is that like hike up your pants because your underwear is showing? Or is that like hike down the bunny trail because we're going to Oz?
Hike down the pants on the invisible pants on the emperor that has no clothes, because this is what it is. This is why I'm laughing so much, man. Being here, whatever you want to call this existence, is just too weird to be real, and it's too weird to be desirable. How can anybody want to be here? How can they want to play out the game? Because I've been tired of this video game for, like, too many generations now, man.
You know, the Business Insider magazine published recently a list of 10 quote-unquote conspiracies that ended up being absolute truths. And this is based on, and I'd spoken about this, I don't know, at some point in time, based on the fact that through periods of time, documents become declassified. But basically speaking, one of the declassifications is that the Department of the Treasury poisoned alcohol during Prohibition, and people died. Okay. Now this is an absolute admitted known fact. This is not a woo. This was never a conspiracy, because basically speaking, the ATF was only brought into existence for Prohibition, and when Prohibition was going to go away, all of those people were going to lose their jobs, and the government was going to lose an agency, and the government was going to lose a budget, and the government was going to lose all these things. Now, if we think about as just individuals, some of the things that we have done through our lives to keep our jobs, okay, and then like work that up the scale of control and work that up the scale of income, okay, and then take the absolute confessions, okay, of the agencies and the people involved, okay, and fit that in your brain, and then tell me how you can. I'm telling you, I want to stick forks in my freaking eyes, okay? They are being so bold about the things that they're doing, and people just swallow this, okay? There's a judge in Connecticut, who is a Supreme Court justice, who gave a ruling on the Connecticut gun control law that they've been arguing over, and his exact words were this: while the act burdens the plaintiff's Second Amendment rights, it is substantially related to the important government interest of public safety and crime control. Okay, so here it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is what the Supreme Court just said about the Constitution. Yes, we have just infringed the Second Amendment, which says you shall not be infringed, but it's okay because it's related to something that we find a little important.
It's a game.
But nobody's playing.
Sure they're playing.
No, they're voyeurs. They're watching. Because, in a game you got to take sides, and there is aggression and competition, and one side wants to win over the other. And I think this is, you tell me, Bob, this is the point of just apathy for me. It's like, my God, they're not even playing, they're not even engaged. They're just kind of like letting inertia have that accident roll past them on the highway and go, oh, wasn't that interesting?
Okay, I look at it this way. At first, they sat us down at a chessboard. They gave us a rule book, and they said, come on, play the game. And what this has devolved into is a lobotomized guy duct taped to a chair. The chessboard's on a lazy Susan. They're spinning it like the Wheel of Fortune and moving both sides.
Slow down, I can't write that fast.
Say that again for Patrick. He's sneezing.
No, don't say. You guys just talk among yourselves. I'm gonna transcribe.
I mean, seriously. At some point in time, at least they feigned the fact that we had a seat at the table. They let us choose whether we wanted to be black or white. They let us know what the rules were. Okay, now it's not even that. Now it's just like, you're sitting there in a puddle of your own piss and shit, drooling, and they're playing both sides, and we're going, am I going to win? And they're going, oh, yes, absolutely. Oh, goody.
Here, look it. We're winning.
I mean, seriously, this entire concept of everybody that participates gets a medal. Yeah, it's a radioactive medal. It's toxic, and they shove it in your freaking ass. Okay, what's the point? Actually, and we've gone a little tangential here, but what started this whole dance was what I was asking you two, who are substantially more, detail-oriented than me. Have you guys noticed, anything in particular, biochemically or in any of your researchings or anything like that, that sort of is a delineation between the angry and the apathetic? Is there something that can swing people?
Oh, that's a good question. It spurs something in the back of my mind. I can't answer that right now, but it's a memory trigger. I think it's addressed in the biology of aggression. The topic of apathy. I'm going to make a note and I'll look into it, and we'll pick this up.
Well, that could be actually a gene sequencing that gets turned off, so you actually lose the ability to even have that happen anymore. To even swing your thoughts, oh yeah, over here, this I can reason with. There's I believe, or whatever you want to call it, that people's ability to even reason can get shut right off because of certain genes that get shut off, certain toxins that get in, viruses and so forth that get introduced. Actually, you lose the ability, because most people nowadays, and I really try to have conversations with the regular run-of-the-mill people out here.
Don't do that, man.
Well, I
we
really
have
try
a
because I feel. Oh, what's that?
We have a caller. Dr. Dean Lloyd has joined us.
Oh. Okay.
Hi, guys.
You're burbling a little bit, Dean.
Yeah, that's pretty burbling.
I didn't. My radio cut out, so I didn't.
All right. Well, we got a caller. How you doing? You said it was Dean?
Dr. Dean Lloyd. He has a show with Dr. Amrosen on the first Friday of the month.
Oh. How you doing there, Dean?
I'm good. I hope my signal is coming in better.
It is. Thank you.
Beautiful. My radio I just cut out. Would you mind repeating what you just said about a minute back or a minute and a half back?
Who are you saying that to? There's three of us here that have been kind of rambling.
You, Dr. Will.
Well, I just wanted to stay in sync with you. But when I called Skype, what I didn't realize is that when you call, it shuts down the radio at the same time.
Oh, okay. So what I was saying is, in response to Bob and Patrick there, that there is a capacity that we have internally that I believe that gets shut off because of the biological and chemical warfare on the population, the GMOs in the food, the crap in the environment, that actually shuts down some gene expression and turns on some other genes, that actually people lose the capacity to have an open, information-filled conversation without getting violent.
Excellent. Okay. Part of the issue with so much of the antagonist, electromagnetic pollution, you mentioned genetically modified, those types of things that gum up our signals, our ability to tap into our own receptivity. One of the biggest things that we talk about in the show is how you regain access to what has been shut off. As you're probably familiar with, how hormones get shut down, very common, way of doing this to our immune system. The dairy products, for example, have over 52 different antibiotics in it on average. That's horrendous. Now, when kids are consuming this on a daily basis, their immune system gets weaker, predisposed to things like asthmas or most commonly digestive difficulties, and the nutrient baseline. My comment was going to be in that accessibility that you were bringing up is, what do we do to counter, or how are we able to recalibrate ourselves to prepare for the change that says, okay, I don't feel empowered. This is what I get a lot of. I don't feel empowered to be able to defend myself against all of these enemies. The water's polluted, the environment's polluted, the chemtrails, our government system, the human weaknesses are being taken advantage of by the people in power, the elite and so on. But they don't know how to access it for themselves because they've never known how to gain independence. I was going to just make a comment that our next show is going to be talking about independence and how you're able to recognize what's taking your power away. Have you any comment on how you've been building yourself up for what the coming ails or the coming antagonists, what has been draining you? What have you been doing?
Oh, pick me.
Okay, then pick you indeed.
Yeah, you guys talk first. I'll just wait in the wings over here. Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you.
What do I do to be empowered? I get pissed the fuck off. Because you know what? That's the thing that they are afraid of most, and that is the best biological advantage we have. It is the single best combatant to EMF, to biological manipulation. Okay, and Patrick had mentioned it, the parts about apathy in the biology of aggression is, there is a lot of information in that book about the biology of being apathetic, and even Columbia University, as part of their Human Genome Project, has identified subspecies of Homo sapiens that lack the genetic capability to show empathy. Okay, and in that direction, there's quite a bit of published research, okay, to the soft side. What they don't want you to know about is the hard side. And the hard side is that anger is not negative. Anger is a natural emotion. It can have negative consequences if expressed improperly. But that was one of the foundations of my question to Will and Patrick, was the fact that what is it going to take for people to stand up? Because I will tell you, based on a lifetime of experience in studying esoteric systems from around the planet, okay, until someone expresses, and I mean expresses with great passion, emotion, and anger, the fact that they are a conscious, independent, creator-born, consciousness imbued with certain rights and are willing to get angry to defend those rights, there is not a thing in the world that's going to make them do anything except sit there and wait. The end.
Okay. No, okay. What would be your response? Will?
Oh, Patrick, you going to respond?
I just got a short one-liner. Go ahead and give us what you got, Will.
Oh, well, I practice what I preach. I get a hand scan every 3 to 4 weeks, and I follow my protocol. That's what I've created, and that's my life. Okay? I look at my external view. I look out with an external view of what's going on out there as craziness. I do not get really moved by much. I've had a lot of experiences in my little bitty short life on this planet, and have come to know that there is no good or bad. Show it to me. That's a judgment that people put on stuff. There is no right or wrong. Show it to me. That's a personal judgment and an ego trip. If you're going to start making those judgments, I look at what's right for me. I know this stuff is going on all around us, and I've built in as much as I possibly can to protect, to reverse, and to get the body to heal in what I do to help humanity. And it works on all these levels simultaneously if you work the program. That's what I do. And that's what my life is based on, and that is what my life is about right now. Because I found success on all these different levels, and it's simple. It is not complicated, and 99% of the information out here in alternate media, all of it on the TV and all that stuff, it's all junk and fraud, and it's designed to distract you. It's designed to keep you in fear. It's designed to keep you from not moving. It's designed to keep you disempowered. There's my 2 cents worth. So, Patrick?
Worth a lot more than 2 cents.
So for everybody that has the biology of aggression, go to page 50. It is the single citation of apathy in the book. And then to answer the question, I have a personal problem. Since I was a child, I've taken everything at face value. So when I saw The Wizard of Oz, and the great and powerful Oz was a wizened little old man behind a curtain that a tiny little dog had uncovered, I have always viewed the world that way. And if you have that embedded as part of your internal structure, that although we are faced by a seeming overwhelming power, that it is just a tiny little parasite of a creature that can be rooted out and destroyed, then there's not many problems. There's just one. It's not a big problem. It's just embedded.
Nice. So what about, is the issue here then, are we doing what's adequate and appropriate for our ability to not get sucked in? That's a very high tendency for a lot of the bad information, or the information that we call incorrect or misleading information. And I'm just, as I was listening in on the show, I heard you all speaking of, you're very well informed of what the enemies are, what the drains are, what the antagonists are, where they're coming from. What I wanted to just make my comment about was that you also sounded like the audience needed to hear from you on how are you preparing, because I don't see enough of that going on. I don't see enough of, okay, what do I do? We're solution-minded. It's, I've got to figure out what the problem is, and when they find the problem, they repeat it, but find it in all different levels of their life, be it the food level, be it their economic level, their intimate relationship level. So part of our solution relating, and this isn't just a plug for our show, but we're trying not to overemphasize something that's not working. We've been fortunate to, in the field that I've been in, I left the medical field 17 years ago, and I've been doing what would be referred as alternative. It's really not alternative. Most of the doctors out there aren't doctors. They're medical technocrats. I tend to, I don't criticize where, good work is being done, but it becomes scientific reductionism, where the work in the field of medicine is not about healing. It's about finding a category that can medicate you. Very often is the case where people feel disempowered, they have no choice. So I just wanted to make sure that I was making that point, that we are solution ideas. These are not, we're solution minded. We're not trying to put you in a base of fear.
Gentlemen, you have 1 minute left.
Thank you, Dave, for giving me the heads up on that. But that was just my closing statement. I just wanted to make sure that this is not fear-based.
I can. This is a topic that we should just take up next Monday, and hammer this out. Sun Tzu in The Art of War says, number 1, know yourself. Number 2, know your enemy. And so pretty much when we go down this road, we're trying to define, do we know ourselves? If you don't, then you can't differentiate yourself from this microbiome that shares the host. You can't tell the difference. So if we find that delineation, then we can go to solutions, because we don't want to end up offing ourselves, throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Gentlemen, it's time to wrap it up. Well, no one wants to talk, so I'll say it. It's time to bring this show to a close. I'll be back in a few minutes with Journeys with JP. And thanks again, guys. And we'll speak to you later.
Take care, Dave.
Always.
Thanks, Pops. Actually, I heard a click and thought you pulled the plug on us.
Nah, I'm doing it right now.
Me too.